I just want to remind you that the readings are on your paper. And if you would like to read along with us, take your papers, read this week, and discuss it with us. And Hosea is a powerful book. It's probably one of the most life-changing books in my life. And I'm going to share with you why that is today. But first of all, I want to share with you about a scandal that's kind of taking place. There's nothing that rocks the church world like a scandal. And what I mean by that is, a high-profile minister has some type of moral failure, and it's broadcasted for the world to see, to scrutinize, to judge, and it takes another chunk out of the integrity of the church. And I'm sure the preachers have always messed up. It's always happened. But it seems to me that, at least in my viewpoint, it kind of started back in the 80s when TV evangelists became popular and ministries started growing to mega sizes, and pastors kind of were elevated to this rock star status because they were on TV every week. And so we were all shocked, those of us who remember when Jim Bakker was arrested. And then we were all double shocked when Jimmy Swaggart confessed on live TV about his failure. And then as the years kind of come and go, well, it just isn't quite as shocking anymore. Another preacher has fallen and it just doesn't really shock like it used to because it happens so much. Well, I don't know if you've heard about this last ongoing minister scandal, but let me share with you some of the gruesome details. One of our high-profile ministers, and maybe one of the highest, most well-known, and I'm not going to share his name with you today because I don't want to, I don't feel like I need to do that. But he was caught visiting with a prostitute. Now, he's single. He wasn't cheating on his wife or anything like that, but it doesn't change the fact that he was caught in the company of a well-known prostitute. What is a minister doing with a prostitute? And it wasn't just visiting, it wasn't just a pastoral visit, because shockingly enough, he then announced on public TV that he will be marrying said prostitute and he will be making her his wife. Talk about being unequally yoked. It just really doesn't make any sense whatsoever. Now, how do you think this is going to go over in his church? I mean, he's a spiritual leader to thousands of people, and he decides that he is going to make the first lady of the church a prostitute. I mean, pastoring is like a glass house. I've only pastored small churches, but everything you do gets scrutinized. Every small little thing, whether right or wrong, gets scrutinized. People are always judging what you do and what you say. And so I can imagine this minister bringing this woman of the night into his home and betrothing her, and you can pretty much guess what everybody in the church is saying, what everybody in the world is saying. Heck, you're probably thinking it right now. A pastor doesn't have any business marrying a prostitute. No one does, really, if you think about it, because they're not really marrying material. And just so you understand me, I'm not talking about ex-prostitute. I'm not talking about a prostitute in a past life, but I'm talking about an active prostitute that this man of God has supposedly somehow fell in love with and decided that he's going to spend the rest of his life with. Somehow he came in contact with her in a non-sinful way, hopefully, and he must have fell in love with her, and hopefully she will quit the current position of prostitution, and maybe in her new position as pastor's wife, maybe she'll lead the women's group, or maybe she'll become the woman auxiliary leader, or maybe we'll let her teach kids church, or something like that, or greet at the door, because that's what pastors' wives are supposed to do. This doesn't sound so scandalous. It's just so scandalous. I don't have the stats in front of me, but I'm guessing the church attendance probably took a hit. I imagine if the Sunday after the big announcement, people were shopping for a new church. But there's more. I would like to tell you there was a happy ending. That he betrothed her, he brought her into his home, and then she went around teaching and preaching seminars about how she'd come out of the life. And she's on TBN, and she's on Oprah, and she's got book deals, and she's going around, and she's sharing with people about how God had set her free. But actually, as a matter of fact, what happened was the pastor married her, and he loved her, and things were going great for a little bit. And then something even more scandalous happened. One night while he was sleeping, she snuck out, she left, and she never came back. And finally, when he went looking for her, he found her right back where she was, in the same place, on the same street corner, doing the same job, prostituting herself out again. Scandalous. Thinking, how is this church going to handle this, you know? Obviously, the preacher gave up on her, right? Wrong. Declaring his love for her, he went after her. And he begged her to come home. I don't know exactly what had happened, but she got into some pretty serious debt with this pimp. And so the preacher went in and he paid off her debt. And he literally had to buy his wife back from the pimp. And he brought her home. And all this he did while continuing in ministry. Scandalous. So scandalous. Isn't this nuts? But this is actually what happened in the book of Hosea. It's an amazing story. And the reason why I started it out like this, in kind of this modern day perspective, is because I want you to try to understand the magnitude of what is happening here. Hosea was the called prophet of God. And all this wasn't done in private. All this was done in the eyes of the people. They saw every bit of this take place. This wasn't just some story they read, like we're reading it, but they watched this drama unfold in front of their eyes, and they experienced every bit of it. And the only way I think that we can really understand the weight of this is to imagine that you go to the church, that the pastor is going through all these things that Hosea is going through. Imagine you're in that situation. People talked. I'm sure people argued about it over dinner. I'm sure that they shook their heads in wonder and disgust. Like, really? Some judged and some gossiped. Some probably sympathized. Those who knew him well probably felt sorry for him. All until the big reveal. All until they realized that there was more to the story than meets the eye. So turn over to Hosea chapter 1. Chapter 1, verses 2 to 3. Let's begin there. Hosea chapter 1. Hosea chapter 1 is going to be on the screen. When the Lord first began speaking to Israel through Hosea, he said to them, "Go and marry a prostitute, so that some of her children will be conceived in prostitution. This will illustrate how Israel has acted like a prostitute by turning against the Lord and worshiping other gods." So Hosea married Gomer. God told Hosea to marry a prostitute as an object lesson. Now, you know me, I like a good object lesson as much as the next guy. You know, I like a good visual. But I'm thinking that this is maybe going a little above and beyond what an object lesson should be. And it just goes to show you that when you open up your arms and you say, "God, use me," and you're saying, "God, use me for your glory," that you don't really know what you're asking. Because I'm sure that when Hosea accepted the call to ministry, that this is not what he had in mind. He probably thought he'd preach some good sermons, he would give some good words of wisdom, maybe he'd prophesy to a few kings, but instead, his life has become this huge object lesson for all of us to see. But Hosea obeys God, and he goes and he marries this prostitute named Gomer. And let me just add that she doesn't sound very attractive. I mean, if you are cruising through Tinder profiles, you know what Tinder is? Single people? Okay, anyway. If you are cruising through Tinder profiles, I'm guessing if you see the name Gomer, that you're not stopping and thinking, "Wow, that is a beautiful name." As a matter of fact, I only know one Gomer, and he plays on the Andy Griffith Show. And that's the only face I can think of when I hear of the name Gomer. So it doesn't sound very attractive. It doesn't scream out beauty. But Hosea marries her, and he loves her, and he treats her like a queen, and he takes care of her, and they have children, and they begin this nice family. But then for no reason at all, Hosea comes home to find that Gomer's left, and when he goes looking for her, he realizes that Gomer has went back to her old life. Now, according to Mosaic law, you know, he can be done. I mean, he did his due diligence. I mean, he tried. He could have her put to death. At the very least, he could divorce her. But instead, God has other plans. Look at Hosea chapter 3, verses 1 to 3. It says, "Then the Lord said to me, go and love your wife again, even though she commits adultery with another lover. This will illustrate that the Lord still loves Israel, even though the people have turned to other gods and have loved to worship them. So God tells Hosea, no, don't give up on her, but go and love her again. Which means he loved her the first time. And he was still in love with her now. Go love her again. God does not release Hosea. The object lesson is not over. As a matter of fact, it has just begun. Go and love her again, because this will illustrate that the Lord still loves Israel, even though the people have turned to other gods and loved them, loved to worship them. God didn't say, go bring her back home to your house. God didn't just say, go make her come home. He said, go and love her. And then to make matters worse, we find out in a couple of chapters later that when she comes home, she's pregnant with another man's child. What a mess. What a scandal. And how heartbreaking Hosea must have been to have to go through all of this. And once again, I want you to understand, this was not done in silence. This was not something that he went and he wrote about and then sent out for people to see, but they seen it. They heard it. They experienced it. And everyone knew who Hosea was. Everyone knew that he was the called prophet of God. And word would get around quick about what was going on in his personal life. Because you know how church people like to talk. But God was using Hosea's life to send two very important messages to Israel. And I'm going to be very short and very blunt. These are the two messages that God was sending to Israel. Number one, Israel, I love you. Number two, Israel, you are acting like a whore. These are the messages. How many of you have ever seen the movie Pretty Woman, starring Julia Roberts? Well, of course you have, because it's one of the great Hollywood love stories, right? It's this sweet little innocent movie about this young prostitute who falls in love with this successful businessman who hires her for the week to keep him company. You know, your typical basic man falls in love with prostitute love scenario. You know how they do it. I'm saying it's just your basic Disney love story. But in the movie, Hollywood does a fantastic job of really downplaying the immoral and sickening nature of prostitution. Julia Roberts, she plays this fun-loving, friendly, beautiful, witty prostitute with morals. She has morals. Because you see, if you watch the movie, you'll find out that although she will have sex with you for money, she will not kiss you on the mouth, because that's just too personal. You know, she is saving that for the special someone. And somehow we buy into that. Somehow we're like, oh, we applaud her for it. Don't you dare kiss him on the mouth. You save that for Richard Gere. I don't know anybody applauding for it. You know, somehow it works. And the movie also plays off her occupation as being some means to an end, because, you know, she's saving money and she's got this plan and this goal in life. And she's a person with ambition, and she's doing what she has to do in the meantime. And she was raising enough money to move on with her life, and it's no big deal. And by the end of the movie, we fell in love with the character, and we're applauding her very strange morality. And her and the rich man drive off into the limo, into the sunset, and live happily ever after. In the end. And well, obviously, this is not a true picture of prostitution, because prostitution is not a means to an end, but it is the end. It is the last resort. It is when a person gets to such a low point in their life, and these are the ones who choose, because there's so many. We're talking about Code of Columbia. There's so many who don't even get the choice. They go in when they're young, 10, 9, 10, 8, 9, 10, 11 years old, pulling them off the streets and forcing them into the life, and they never know anything else. But those who maybe choose the life, they choose because they have no other choice. They take the one thing, the most precious and the most intimate thing that they have, the only thing that they have left that belongs to them, and they give it away for money just so they can survive. And here are some statistics just so you'll understand the nature of this. Prostitution usually begins around the age of 14 to 16. It happens at a very young age when they feel like they have no other choice. Most prostitutes continue in the business either to support a drug habit or because they feel trapped and there's no other way out. 78% of prostitutes have been threatened with a weapon. I just want you to understand this is not something that people just choose. 82% of prostitutes have been physically assaulted. 73% of prostitutes have been raped more than 5 times. 84% of prostitutes are homeless, or they once were homeless. 75% use drugs. 87% say that they would leave it behind in the moment. And one prostitute, Annie Lobert, wrote this even after she had left their life behind. She said, I felt like I couldn't go anywhere. I couldn't function socially as a human being. And when I did go somewhere, I felt like everyone knew what I used to do for a living. I felt dirty and cheated and disrespected and violated, a worthless individual to society. I didn't know who I was anymore. I often wanted to end my very own life. If you don't get out, she says, you will lose your very own soul and you will go completely insane. This profession, it does something to your soul, something that can only be healed by God. So what does God mean when He compares Israel to a prostitute? As a matter of fact, I'm being nice here because the word that the King James Version uses and most of the other versions of the Bible use is a much stronger word, and that is the word hoe. Whore. That's a rap song. I'm sorry. That's a whore. That's a strong message. So God doesn't use soft language here. Hosea, who is going through this mess, could care less about offending you. Do you understand what I'm saying? Hosea, who stands up before all these people, could care less about offending those people out there because of the mess that he's going through. God, who is going through this array of emotions himself, could care less about offending the people because he wants to get his point across as poignantly and as quickly as possible. God told Hosea in Hosea chapter 4 and 12, he said, for the spirit of whoredoms have caused them to err, and they have gone a whoring from under their God. So why does God compare them to whores? Because that's what they've been acting like. God loves them, and He saves them, and He blesses them, and they love Him back for a moment, but then something turns their head, and they get lured away, and then they run into the arms of another God. Let me just kind of run it down for a little bit. God rescued them from Egypt, right? And just a few weeks into the journey, they stopped at Mount Sinai, and Moses went up the mountain. And after he'd been gone just a few days, they built a golden calf, and they started worshiping like a bunch of whores. You understand what I'm saying? God brought them to the promised land, and because of fear, they rejected God, and they said, just take me back to the gods of Egypt. All through the book of Judges, they would worship other gods, and they would find themselves in trouble. They would call out to Jehovah like a faithful husband. He would come save them. But then guess what would happen? Things would go well, and it would happen all over again and all over again. He would save them, they would love them, and then they would walk away, and He would rescue again and again and again and again, like a bunch of whores. In the book of 1 Samuel, they rejected God and said, let us have a king like everybody else. God, we don't want you as king. Let us have a man as a king. And they got exactly what they wanted, and it was disastrous. And there was wars, and the kingdom split, and good kings would rise up, and evil kings would rise up, and the people would run to other gods, and they would worship other gods, and then things would go bad, and they would cry out to God, and God would come and save them, and then they would rebel, and they would do it all over again. And as you read through the Old Testament, this is what happens time and time and time again. It is the reoccurring thing. God has loved them, and He's cared for them, and He's led them, and He's protected them, and He's guided them, and He's delivered them, and He's always been there when they called. He devoted Himself to them. He loved them like a husband loves a wife. He has made them His own people. Out of all the people, He said, you're my people. He chose them above all else, and they continue to play the prostitute. When something better comes along, they go for it. When something more pleasing comes along, they want it. They're quick to walk away from the one who loved them. They're quick to run away from the one who has always been faithful. The one that's always there to protect them. The one that's always there to save them. The one that's always there to swoop in and gather them up. They just so quickly, they just walk away. Continually selling themselves to sin. Continually worshiping at the altar of self. Continuing to disobey. Everything's going great for a while, but all of a sudden they get up in the middle of the night and they just go back to that old life. Now, I hear two very distinct messages when I read the book of Hosea. Number one, It makes God angry, as any husband who has treated his wife like a queen, but she betrays him and cheats on him, as you can imagine, he's sick of it. He's sick of being treated this way. He's angry because he's jealous. And he has no problem telling you. He tells you in the Word, he says, I am a jealous God. He does not want to share you with anyone else. So that's where his anger comes from, because he's a jealous God. Number two, it breaks God's heart. I mean, if you don't think that God doesn't have emotions, then you're crazy. I mean, we're made in His likeness, in His image. We are like God. Everything that I am is God-like in the way that I feel and my emotions. Those things come from God. And so I can sense, as I read Hosea, the intense hurt, the intense pain, the anger, the frustration, the love that comes from these passages. God is passionate about His relationship with us. And when we reject Him, it hurts. And you can sense that hurt in these passages. So yeah, God uses the word whore, because at this point, He's not concerned about hurting their feelings, but instead He wants to get the point across. He wants to communicate this to them as bluntly and as clearly as possible. And even though Israel has cheated, and even though they have rebelled, and they have disobeyed, and they have rejected, and they have committed adultery, even though they are whoring around, God still longs for their intimacy. God still longs to be with them. He could have left them on the street corner. He could have told Gomer, or he could have told Hosea, leave her there so that I can show Israel exactly how I am going to leave them in their sin. But instead He said, go and get her and bring her home and love her again, so that Israel can see how I will also bring them home, relentlessly pursuing, always going after, never giving up, always loving, because that's the type of God I am. Yeah. See, a lot of people think that Hosea, that he was just being obedient to God. Like all this was just, this object lesson, and he was just doing what God said. It was all purely mechanical. Some people think that maybe he really never loved her, that he was just doing what he was told. But I don't believe that for a minute, because for Hosea to fully understand how much God loved Israel, for him to be able to properly present God's message, I believe that Hosea had to love Gomer. He had to be madly in love with her. He had to love her like God loved Israel. And I believe that God had put a supernatural love in Hosea's heart for Gomer. I believe that Hosea loved Gomer in a way that maybe none of us could even comprehend, because he had a touch of God's love for her. And when she left him to run into the arms of another, and he had to go buy her back, I just can't imagine how that broke his heart and how it must have ripped him in two. I can't even imagine the pain that Hosea must be going through. And when Hosea, when you put the pieces together like this, think about this. When Hosea would get up in front of the people to give God's message to them, they knew what was going on in his life. He knew obviously what was going on in his life. He would get up. He was a broken man. He was a man full of love, full of heartache, feeling the full weight of God's words, having had experienced them, and sharing the pain that God felt. And all the people fully aware of what Hosea was currently going through, listening intently as he spoke with passion. I mean, it's not just like me getting up and saying, God wants me to tell you this, but this is a man who was going through every bit of this pain, getting up and expressing this in a way that we can only imagine, because he's going through it. And he says in Hosea chapter 6, verses 4 to 7, he says, O Israel and Judah, what should I do with you, asks the Lord. Listen to the emotion in this. For your love, it vanishes like the morning mist, and it disappears like the dew in the sunlight. I want you to show love, not offer sacrifices. I want you to know me more than I won't burn offerings. But like Adam, you broke my covenant and you betrayed my trust. And over in Hosea 11, he says, when Israel was a child, I loved him. I called my son out of Egypt. But the more I called him, the farther he moved from me, offering sacrifices to the images of Baal and burning incense to idols. I myself taught Israel how to walk, leading him along by the hand, but doesn't know or even care that it was I who took care of him. I led Israel along with the rope, with my ropes of kindness and love. I lifted the yoke from his neck, and I myself stooped to feed him. For my people are determined to desert me. Yeah, you sense that pain there? You sense? For my people are determined to desert me. They call me the Most High, but they don't truly honor me. Oh, how can I give you up, Israel? How can I let you go? Oh, how much he loves. Do you hear the love? It's an unexplainable love. It's an undeniable love. It's an unfathomable love. God loves his people so much that he pursues them passionately, persistently, unapologetically, relentlessly, even when they cheat. And what does God want in return? What did Hosea want in return? He didn't just want someone to clean the house. He could have got a servant to do that. That's not what he was looking for. That's not what God's looking for. Hosea wasn't just looking for someone to cook him dinner and serve him. He could have got any servant to do that. That's not what Hosea was looking for. That's not what God's looking for. But he wanted to be loved. That is what God wants from us. He wants to be loved. You know, this is one of the most life-changing stories in the Bible for me. This story changed my life. And you might think that's odd, but every time I read this, it grips me. Because I am gripped by the enormity of God's love. It grips me, and it amazes me. But I'm also equally gripped by the reality of who I am in this story. You know, it's easy and a little less offensive to relate to other places and other things, other parables in the Bible. For instance, there was this father who had a son, and the son came and he said, I want my inheritance. And he took his inheritance and he went away and he squandered it on riotous living. And then one day he come home and the father seen him coming and he accepted him. That's me, I'm that son. And God's that father. That's an easy, relatable story, wouldn't you agree? But what about the woman who lost the coin? And she had a bunch of coins, but she lost this one coin. And she just turned the house upside down looking for this coin. Because even though she had other coins, this coin had value, and she would not give up the value of this coin. This woman represents God, and that coin represents me. God would not give up on me because he seen value in me. I relate to that. That's easy relatable. Or about the one sheep that went astray. You know, the shepherd had 100 sheep, and the 99 were good, and they stayed put, but there's this one sheep that never listened. I'm relatable. You know, he went, and the shepherd left the 99, and he went after the one, and he brought the one sheep. God's the shepherd. I am that sheep. It's totally relatable. It's easy to relate to those stories. But in this story, there's two characters. There is a loving husband, and there is a cheating wife. There is a husband who loves powerfully and unconditionally, and then there is a wife who is easily tempted and lured away. And if God is the husband who loves, then it's rather easy to see who I am. But how does that relate to you and I? How does Hosea in the Old Testament relate to us in the New Testament? Well, there are many gods in this world that are seeking for our attention and our affection. But this is the only God that has ever loved you back. There are many gods in this world that will promise you fulfillment and satisfaction, but there is only one God that can give you peace. And how many times have we rejected the God who loves for a God who promises instant pleasure? And I'm not talking about the gods like names like Allah or Buddha, but I'm talking about anything that you decide is more important than God. Anything that you would put between you and God. How many times have you rejected God and ran into the arms of money? Or how many times have you rejected God and ran into the arms of pornography? Or God has freed you from it and you've done really well, but somehow in the lures of the night, you have allowed yourself to be lured away and you have ran out of the goodness and grace of God back into the arms of that other lover. How many times have you rejected God and ran into the arms of entertainment or pride or addiction or any other thing that you put in front of God, like your job or your relationship or your computer or your so-called intellect or your vanity? And interestingly enough, the name Hosea literally means salvation. And you want to talk about an object lesson? It is an object lesson. It is an object lesson that portrays a Savior, portrays Jesus Christ, who would come and would redeem every single one of us. A Savior who would continue to pursue us, who would always love us, who would continue to redeem us, who would relentlessly chase us, and would one day pay the ultimate price for the one He loves. It is a beautiful story of redemption. And just like Jesus purchased Gomer back, Hosea purchased Gomer back, Jesus paid the price for our freedom with His blood. And He brought us home, and He cleans us up, and He embraces us, and He forgives us, and He loves us, and He cares for us, and He forgets about all we have done, and He never brings it back up again. He never flaunts it in our face. He doesn't say, you need to quit acting like this because you remember, I saved you from that street corner. He never brings it back up, but He completely restores us. That's what redemption is. And that's exactly what Jesus done for you and I. He doesn't give up on us. Now that is a love story. But the problem is, for us Gomers, I'm just going to be honest. For a while, that's great. For a while, we rest there. But something happens. For whatever reason we can't explain, it rises up in us again, begins to stir in us, and we find ourselves longing for something else, even being lured away into the arms of another. And so often, we fail. Maybe we don't stay as close as we should. Maybe we get lazy. Maybe we take it for granted. But if we're not careful, we will find ourselves being lured away before we know it, and we are right back where we started. Psalms 106:39 says, in the Young's Living Translation, they are defiled with their works and commit whoredom in their habitual doings. When will the cycle stop? When will we quit running away? When will we realize that none of the other gods will ever satisfy us? When will we realize that everything that we need is right here? When will we realize that no matter how often we are lured away or run away, that none of those things are going to make us happy? And in the meantime, God continues loving. He continues pursuing. He chases. He woos. All for this hope that one day we will fall in love with Him, and one day we will return that love. It is the greatest love story that has ever been told. An ongoing love story. Romans 5:8 says, but God demonstrated His love for us, though while we were still sinners, Christ died. I'm going to ask you to do me a favor. I want you to bow your heads. I want you to close your eyes. Now I want you to listen to the words of this song. Put yourself in this position and listen to the words of the song. then your response to this message is that I don't want to be going. But in reality, I am going. We all are. All go. I preached a sermon similar to this one time at a revival many years ago, and afterwards a man came up to me and he said, "Well, that's a pretty good sermon, but that didn't relate to me because I've never sinned." And I just thought, there's really nothing I could say to that. Because every single one of us, something entices us. Every single one of us has something that lures us away. And the idea, this story it's not a condemning story. There's nothing in here, there's nothing condemning about it. It's a love story. It's a God telling his people, even though I know this, it's not in secret. I see it. I know it. You're not fooling anybody. I still love you. And I still pursue you. And I'm still coming after you. And it breaks my heart to break his heart. That's why this story is so life-changing for me, because when I realized that God was like Hosea, it broke my heart to know that his heart was breaking. And his love for me, it motivates me to want to love him in return. And to be faithful more than I've ever been faithful before. Because it's a motivation to be loved like that. And that's how much God loves you. So, how are you responding? Bow your heads, Father. I'm just going to do this. I'm just going to ask as they play and sing. I'm just going to ask, just find a place to pray. Just begin to talk to God. Pour your heart out to God. Maybe you need to say, "Thank you, God, for loving me." Maybe you need to say, "I'm sorry, God, for being like that. I'm sorry, God, for being enticed. I'm sorry, God, for running away from you." Whatever it is, whatever you need to say, let's just take some time this morning. Spend some time with the one who loves you, who pursues you, and who adores you. Let's pray.
All these pieces broken and sad, in mercy gathered, mended and whole, empty-handed, but not forsaken. I've been set free. I've been set free. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. Oh, I once was lost, but now I'm found. Was blind, but now I see. Oh, I can see you now. And I can see the love in your eyes, laying yourself down, raising up the broken to life. All these pieces broken and scattered, in mercy gathered, mended and whole, empty-handed, but not forsaken. set your treasure in jars of clay. So take this heart, Lord, I'll be your vessel, the one to sing your love in me. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now I'm found. Was blind, but now I see. Oh, I can see you now. Lord, I can see the love in your eyes. Laying yourself down. Raising up the broken to love.
Aren't you glad that we have a Savior who loves us that much? Willing to pursue you even when you act like a whore. Even when you act like a prostitute. It's probably one of the strongest stories in the Bible. And the language is unapologetic because of the nature of the story. Father, we thank you, God, for your grace. Thank you for your mercy. Thank you for your love. Pray, God, that you be with us this week, God. Help us to, Lord, to not be lured away. Help us to be strong against those things that promise what you alone can give us. You're the only one that can give us that peace and that joy and that love. And God, I thank you for that. I thank you for your love, for your pursuit, your relentless pursuit, your redeeming grace. We honor you, Jesus. In Jesus' name, amen. Don't forget, sell raffle tickets this week. They're next Sunday. Have to have your tickets in. Have to have your money in. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. They've got to be here on Sunday, okay? Got to be. If you're not going to make it next Sunday, you need to call us on Saturday and let us get it. You can't show up on Monday for the drawing without your tickets in there. It would be wrong. It wouldn't be right. So we've got to have those in. You understand what I mean by that? So we've got to have those in. Jennifer's going to meet anybody who's interested in singing in the worship team or being involved in worship. So meet with her up here. Don't forget your sponsor sheets back there for the color walk. Go ahead and start getting your sponsors because registration is coming soon. So you start working on that too. And God bless you.